Hi, my name is Scott Rohrer.
And my name is Sarmir.
Since Zach and I were placed in the same classroom, we decided to do this video project together.
In the Central York School District, we were sent to observe Mrs. Mawes' second grade classroom at Hayshire Elementary on 2801 Hayshire Drive, York, PA.
We visited the school on October 5th, 19th, and 26th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Denise Mawes, our cooperating teacher, can be reached at dmawes@cysd.k12.pa.us.
During our observation, we encountered the teachings of second grade math, music, library, and physical education.
There is a total of 19 students in Mrs. Mawes' classroom. From our understanding, 2 of those 19 students, or 11% of them, have a disability.
Of the 19 students, 10 are girls and the remaining 9 are boys.
The classroom is very diverse. There is a mixture of white, African American, and Hispanic students in the classroom.
The students in the class are between the ages of 7 and 8, learning and demonstrating at a second grade level.
In this slide, we see a device called the fidget tool being used on one of the kiddos with ADHD's chair.
This device was used to help a student who typically has trouble sitting still, channel his energy into something that isn't disruptive.
This tool mainly kept the child's feet busy so that his hyperactivity would not keep him from being focused on his classwork.
This method worked great for keeping the students from physically distracting the other children in the classroom and kept them seated.
This worked for both the inactive representation of ADHD because it helps remove the distraction of other stimuli, and the hyperactive representation of ADHD because it keeps the child mobile while in his seat. This leads us to the example of a paper Mrs. Mawes taped on the desk of the same child with ADHD.
This device acts as a guide for the child with ADHD, giving him small exercises that aren't disruptive to the classroom. The small chart is designed to redirect the student's energy into easy little activities in order to calm him down.
While our previous example really exemplified the inattentive and hyperactive representations of ADHD, this example really focuses on the impulsive representation of ADHD.
As you see in the picture, the chart not only will calm the student down, it will also help him think before he acts and guide him in his work by reminding him to double-check what he wrote.
Here, Mrs. Mawes incorporates a sign designed to redirect her students from doing things that aren't productive.
Our placement lacked any students with disabilities other than one child with ADHD, so this sign is designed for all Mrs. Mawes students, but it applies greatly to the impulsive representation of ADHD.
While it is designed for all kiddos, the redirecting sign really helps students with ADHD think about what they are doing and what they should be doing.
This small reminder also gives the students a chance to fix their behavior on their own before a teacher has to intervene.
Due to the lack of children with special needs, we will show you unique practices our teacher incorporated to enhance the learning environment of the classroom.
What you see here is a technique Mrs. Mawes created herself in order to reward good behavior in her classroom.
Mawes money could be used to gain prizes such as candy or small erasers and pencils.
This technique helped motivate children to keep good and studious attitudes throughout the school day.
Here is a relatively simple strategy Mrs. Mawes incorporates to help her students remember signs for greater and less than.
Students had a hard time remembering which side the sign was supposed to face in the equation.
This poster helped children remember that the alligator eats the bigger number, therefore reminding them which way the sign should face.
Mrs. Mawes incorporated a number of organizational methods into her classroom.
In the picture, you see a multicolored rug. This rug was used to help children to keep their own personal space while enjoying circle time.
The rug was also used as a method to calm the students down before they left the classroom. Each student had to find their exit color before lining up to leave.
This rug helped children regulate their behavior and energy so that they could prepare for wherever they were going next.
Next, Mrs. Mawes used homework charts as a motivational tool in her classroom.
The homework chart was a small grid in which Mrs. Mawes recorded every time a student completed their homework on time.
This tool gave the children incentive to do their homework efficiently and correctly because Mrs. Mawes did not give a homework star if all the homework was incorrect.
The students received a small prize every time they managed to fill up their entire homework chart.
Finally, we see another one of Mrs. Mawes' organizational strategies.
In her classroom, Mrs. Mawes used a lot of bins and colored folders to keep things organized and separated.
In this picture, we are showing the example of where Mrs. Mawes labeled bins to separate different educational games.
This organizational method is very effective because not only did it keep things in order, it also served as a motivational technique.
The students could see the games on display and they knew that good behavior would likely earn some time playing the fun educational games.
Prior to this experience, the only experience I've had working with students with disabilities was at a daycare, which had students with autism.
I have never had any personal experience working with students with disabilities, although my mom aids students with disabilities at her work.
My first impressions of my first placement were good. Personally, I think the sheer excitement of it all affected my initial impressions, but I thought the teacher had a very good handle on her classroom. I was initially skeptical when the teacher said she wasn't sure if there were students with disabilities in her classroom, but for the most part, she taught her class well, including the one student who had ADHD and aiding him in everyday lessons.
My first impression of the experience was also pretty good. I liked how Mrs. Moss kept the classroom colorful and not bland. The way she organized the class was very sufficient, and the way her students behaved with her was also exceptional. Like Zach mentioned, I was a little skeptical to her unknown knowledge of students with disabilities in the classroom, but the way she handled her class was satisfactory.
My beliefs about special education and inclusion have not really changed all too much. I do, however, believe that more students with disabilities should be encouraged to partake in regular education classrooms. I also believe that teachers should be better equipping themselves so that they can more effectively differentiate their lessons and the classrooms for children with special needs. Special education, in my opinion, is a field that needs more attention because every day we are learning more and more about the potential these children have to learn.
After the in-field experience, my beliefs about special education remain the same. I believe teachers need to notice that not everyone can learn the same way or at the same pace, so adjustments need to be made in order to accommodate everyone's needs. I know it's near impossible for a teacher to change his or her teaching strategies to satisfy all students, but as long as the teacher includes everyone fairly and provides those who struggle with helpful tools such as the band fidget tool, I believe the classroom should include all students, even those with disabilities.
Looking back specifically on my Hayshire field experience changes my beliefs a little bit. I had always previously believed that special education in our schools was already acceptable as it is. At Hayshire, I think I realized that students with disabilities still need to be more included and better understood. I believe that they require a little bit more attention and effort than the other children, and it's not enough to just allow them to partake in your classroom. This field experience also reinforces my desire to become a special education teacher in my future life. I do not really have many questions other than at what point do people currently decide a child is too disabled for a regular classroom?
My beliefs on special education in the classroom once again remains the same. And with that belief of accepting those students with disabilities in the classroom, I plan on incorporating several strategies and materials in my future classroom. For one, I did like the tools such as the fidget tool and the sheet explaining things to do when I feel wiggly. I could even go as simple as rearranging the classroom to put those of hard hearing or trouble seeing in the front of the classroom or closest to my position in the class. I believe these techniques would help better those students struggling to stay focused and remain active in the class.
A few practices and materials I plan to incorporate in my future classroom include things such as the multicolored rug to calm students down and help them to keep their personal space. I also plan to incorporate motivational strategies such as the Moz money and homework charts to give children incentive to do their work on time and diligently. Finally, I would like to incorporate the practices of calling on children who appear as though they aren't paying attention or understanding to make sure they don't fall too far behind.